Hello and good evening, and welcome to Strong Start Sundays. My name is Dr. Rachel Edoho-Eket, and I'm so excited to see you tonight. We already have people joining us in the chat. Thank you so much for being here. Please let us know your name, your position, and where you are joining us from. We are so excited to welcome Dr. Sonia Matthews tonight, coming from Maryland. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And what an awesome podcast you have going on with Sean Gaylord. And we also have Dr. Attorney is here. Thank you so much for coming in from snowy Ohio. Yes, it is quite snowy in here as Maryland as well, and North Carolina, lots of other places. Tonight, we're so excited to have the wonderful Brad Johnson joining us. Brad, how are you tonight?
I'm cold.
Yes, you are in Georgia, and I'm hearing there's a lot of snow that was falling there as well.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, I think it's very pretty at first, and then after a couple of days, it starts to not be as nice anymore. And I know those of us who are in the school systems, I know in Maryland, we've been out of school this whole week. So we're really looking forward to seeing our students in the coming week. We're keeping our fingers crossed that everybody is safe and that we're ready to return to school. So we are thinking of you if you are knee deep in snow and ice. It has been a challenging week, but we're hoping that everyone is safe no matter where you are tuning in from. Tonight's session is going to be focusing on something that's so important. It's about staff morale. And Dr. Johnson and I are really passionate about really supporting our school leaders and our teachers and trying to make sure we have the best environment possible for the wonderful students that we're serving. And that starts with making sure that our teachers and our staff members are feeling supported and valued. So before we start, I want to put a plug in for our wonderful new book, Key Factor to Exceptional School Leadership. This is a book that Dr. Johnson and I wrote earlier last year, and we really want you all to get a copy of this. This book has a lot of great tips for school leaders and actionable steps to make sure that we are building trust in our communities and with everyone that we serve. Dr. Johnson, what sort of plug do you want to put in for the book?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we wrote it. It's called Relational Intelligence, and that's the key to leadership. You lead people, not necessarily systems. That's part of it, but when you move into that role, it's about the people that you serve. And if you don't know how to build those relationships, how to understand them, how to relate to them, you just are not going to be an effective leader.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. Being a leader is such a complex and complicated role. I know all of you know that on the call. And so when we're coming together twice a month to really talk through some strategies to support your work, we just really are grateful that you are here with us tonight to continue to share ideas and collaborate. We have some new people who are joining the call tonight. Thank you so much, Edrelyn, for joining us. And we also have Dr. Smith, who is coming from Michigan. Thank you so much for being here. And you have a very unique school, 4th through 8th grade principal. So thank you so much. We're so glad that you're here joining us tonight. And we hope that you're going to walk away with some great strategies. Dr. Sonia Matthews is giving us a nice shout out about our book, saying that our book is one of her favorites. So thank you for that, Sonia. So we want to get started right away. We know this time of year is busy and crazy. Right now in our school system, we have been out for a week. That's number one, due to the weather. But we also have parent-teacher conferences coming up in this coming week. We have mid-year conferences that we're holding with our teachers to find out the progress that our students are making and that our teachers are doing with their instruction. And we also have our own administrative conferences that I'll have with our bosses to talk about what we're doing as a school. So this time of year is very busy. And that's not to mention our observations that we're doing in our classrooms. So Dr. Johnson and I were talking a little bit before we started, and he has a great analogy with geese to lead this conversation and talking about how that really models the leadership that we want to have. So Dr. Johnson, share with us, please.
Yeah, absolutely. It's called the B principle. And basically what it is how the geese work as a team. when they're on the ground running around, going crazy and quacking and chasing people, they're actually called a gaggle. But when they get in the air and fly in that formation, they're actually called a team. And so there's a lot of traits that come with that V formation. And it has everything to do with teamwork. And so when you think about them in the air flying, and the reason I use this analogy is because I was a life science teacher. And so I love relating to science, to animals, and things like that. So when they're in the air flying, one of the first things we do is we hear them quacking. And so geese quack for two reasons, really. One of them is kind of a order thing. They are quacking so the ones around them that are in front of them or behind them can hear them so that they know they're in their right position. And this is as important if you think about when they're flying at night or in clouds or storms where they can't easily see each other. So that communication is vital of helping them all stay in formation. Because when they're in formation, the one thing we know is that geese fly 35% more efficiently. And that's important to note that when your team is working together towards the same mission, using their strengths and their roles, it makes everybody's job easier. And so that's the first reason they honk. The second reason they honk is even more important, and it's the reason that they honk the most, and that is encouragement. When geese are honking, they're encouraging the geese around them, the ones in front of them, the ones behind them. One thing that geese do that's interesting that we don't think about often in leadership roles is that the geese are also all honking for the leader, because the leader is the one out front cutting through, the pressure, the resistance, the wind to make it a little easier for all of the rest. So they're actually honking for the leader too. And when you think about in schools, when I think about, just in general, when we have teams that work together, it's important for leaders to praise and be positive, but it's also important for staff to be that way towards their leader and towards each other. It's not just the leader's role to encourage, to support, and to show appreciation. So that's some of the key principles that come from that whole concept of the B principle, of being together, being in unison, being focused on a goal. They're all working towards that one goal of flying somewhere. And so when I share this with schools, with teachers and stuff like that, I'm like, it's very important in the mornings when you get to school for us to hear you quacking, saying good morning to teachers in the hallway in their classroom, to stick your head in and say good morning, how are you doing, support them. So just quacking to each other to help raise the morale of everyone.
I love that analogy, Dr. Johnson. That's one I have not heard before. And when I think about geese and, like you said, that formation, kind of that center, as the school leaders, we represent that center. But just as we encourage others, we need that level of encouragement too. So thank you for lifting that up. And Professor Disick, thank you so much for being here. You said the same thing. That teamwork is really vital for those productive teams. And, I think about when I was teaching in the classroom, being on those high functioning teams. And one of the things that really distinguished the high functioning team from other teams was that level of encouragement, was that level of everyone working within their strengths and having an ability to pull our best selves together to benefit the students that we were serving. And, it's also such a great thing when you're on a high functioning team and you're working with a high functioning school. It's there are always going to be challenges, right? We work in schools. That is a part of the job. There are dynamics when you work with people, when you're in a community, when you're working with families. There's going to be challenges that come up, but it is on those highest functioning teams where the teachers are not looking at each other inwardly, but they are looking at a problem and then working together to find the solutions. They're solution oriented. They're not doing inward fighting. And so when I look at those high functioning teams, that's what we want to produce across our buildings. So I appreciate that idea of that level of encouragement that we should, as leaders, be providing, but also understanding we need that level of encouragement every now and then too. That helps our own personal morale so that we're able to give that back to the people that we're serving. So thank you, Dr. Johnson, for lifting that up. And now I'm going to look at geese a little differently. I'm going to try to, now that I've learned this, that's something that I'll be taking forward with me moving forward. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Dr. Matthew is sharing a great tip that leadership is not solo. And, we have those common goals. It's important for us to work together, even when we're having those, conflicting times, which are always going to happen. Centering it back to our common goals is a great strategy and a great piece to communicate to people that we want to get on the same page, we want to work together, and we want to solve problems together. So that's really important to share. I also want to lift up that as we were preparing for tonight's session, I used AI to help me be a thought partner and to think about what are some different ways that we can lift up our staff. And I see Brad's cat making an appearance. We may see him again.
Sorry about
I love that. But nothing to apologize for. I love it. So one of the things that I use Gemini. I love Gemini, and our school system supports the use of Gemini for our teachers and staff. And so that's one that I'm trying to use a little bit more often. But it had these really great ideas that I wanted to lift up, and then I'm going to share them in the chat so that you have them. So one of the strategies that it said was, it was just a 1 week idea. And certainly you can take the days that you want to use and you can incorporate them as you want. But the first one was called Motivation Mondays. And on Motivation Mondays, you would start a meeting by asking your staff to share a success story about one of their students. I love that. I love the idea of starting staff meetings off that way. That's something that I did a couple of weeks ago. We had a very large staff meeting, and it was going to be a lot of sitting. And my assistant principal and I knew it was going to be a long afternoon for staff. So we did a couple of things. The first thing that we did was a couple of days before, we talked with our PE teachers and we said, can we do a staff activity that's going to be, get us physically moving, because we're going to be sitting for at least an hour or two. And they loved the idea. So if you ever want to see how competitive your staff is, get everyone into the gym and play a game, and you will start to see the personalities emerge. I'm telling you, we had such a fun time playing. It was a simple game. We had balls in the middle, and we were throwing the balls, trying to get them to the other teams in four corners. It was absolutely hilarious. And in the middle, some of our staff members had hockey sticks, and they were pushing the balls out of the way. Absolutely hilarious. Took 2 minutes to set up the game, and it was a lot of fun. Then we transitioned into our meeting, and we had some snacks. And we started the meeting off by saying, share something that you're proud of that a student has accomplished. And so that really got the teachers talking, and you could see the smiles, and you could start to feel that morale lifting up a little bit. And after the teachers were finished talking in small groups, my assistant principal and I said, you told this great story about a student that you've been working hard with. And I hope part of your celebration was yourself, that the work that you are doing to help the students progress is making the difference. Because sometimes, we can get discouraged when we think of all the responsibilities that we have to do as educators or as leaders. But when you can pinpoint a specific example of a student or a teacher that you've impacted, never forget you are a part of that process too. So it was just a great way to start off that meeting. So Motivation Monday is a great idea for you to consider doing. The second one is called Treat Tuesday. This one speaks for itself. You're going to provide a treat for your staff. Valentine's Day is coming up, and maybe you're going to have some candy out for staff, or in the lounge, or some snacks, something like that for Treat Tuesday. I think that one's pretty simple. Wednesday, Wellness Wednesday. I know a lot of schools are doing wellness things. This could be something as simple as walking around, having a group of teachers walk around the building for 15 minutes, or wearing athletic clothes that day. Something like that, I think, would be a great idea for Wellness Wednesdays. Maybe putting out tips for wellness or well-being, just an email. That would be something that would be helpful. Thankful Thursday. This one is really nice. This one is about just sending a positive note to someone, letting them know that they're thankful. It might be a Post-it note. It might be a letter. It could be an email. Just something to let someone know that you're thankful and grateful for their contributions. And finally, Feel Good Friday. I like this idea too. Feel Good Friday is about celebrating and lifting everyone else up. So maybe you'll be in a classroom, you take a picture of something and you say, hey, it's Feel Good Friday. I just wanted to lift up this great work that I saw in a classroom. Or for Feel Good Friday, it might be dress down. You're wearing jeans, you're wearing comfy clothes, you're in your sneakers that day. And those are just some simple ideas that you can try that will help lift up your staff morale just a little bit. While I share that in the chat, Brad, did you want to lift up? We also spoke about the importance of morale from a different standpoint, and that was around making sure our teachers feel supported and valued by the administrator in the building. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, one of the things that we had mentioned that I think is important, because I talk a lot about morale, but it's not really about making your staff happy, but it's really about them, feeling valued and trusting you as a leader. And so, and the work that you're doing. And it kind of goes back to that V principle. They're all focused on achieving that goal. They're trusting the leader out front, and they're all bringing their strengths to the mission. And so, that's important for leaders to realize, because a lot of times some leaders will be like, well, it's not my place to raise morale. They should be able to do it themselves. But there really is an important piece of leadership when you think of it in that perspective. It's not about just making them happy to be there, but it's about helping them be committed to the vision, to the goals, and to you, and building that through trust. The research says, and we might have talked about this in the past, but, Gallup does these studies and polls for 40, 50 years. And what they found is that when employees, not just in teachers, but employees in general, when they feel valued and that their strengths are being utilized in their role, they're 6 times more effective. And, I like to ask administrators, if you had a child, would you want your child to be in teacher A's classroom or teacher B's classroom, who is 6 times more engaged? It's a no-brainer. And so when leaders look at it from that perspective, then they do need to realize, hey, you know what? Morale really is my main thing. And if I can, raise them up, encourage them, support them, appreciate them, then they're going to create a better learning environment for their students. And that makes the teachers enjoy being there and want to do more as well. It's like, one of the things I like to say is that the problem isn't high expectations, it's unclear and unrealistic expectation. And so part of that is supporting them, encourage them, and helping them understand what is the mission, what is the goals, what is expected, and how do we get there. And then you have a group of people that want to be there, that trust you, that, they don't just do their job, but they step up another level.
Yes, I agree. I think you can always get more out of people if they know that you respect them and that you value them for their contributions. we always will do more for people like that. You know, think about when you were a teacher, or think about when you were in the classroom and you know that your administrator cares about you and values your work, you are always going to step up and do more. So that's what we want our teachers to feel like within our buildings. We want them to feel like their contributions matter, because they do. You know, I always tell the teachers, our school is better because you're here. We tell our paras, we tell our custodial team, we are better because of you. And that's the message that everybody in your school should hear and should feel, that our school is stronger because of your presence. And so thank you, Dr. Matthews. She talked about being intentional about the systems, that it's not going to be a one-time thing. These are definitely things that have to be ongoing. And I like that idea, because I like to think of things in like big rocks and little rocks. So when I say a big rock, I mean things like Dr. Johnson said, trust, that foundation. Do teachers feel supported? Do they feel that if there's a problem, they can come to you and you are going to come in a non-judgmental way and support their growth? Do teachers feel that you care about them? Those are big rocks that support morale. The smaller rocks are what I mentioned before, Monday's motivation and Treat Tuesday. Those are things that we also need every now and then. But if your foundation is not there, those big rocks, then that's what our book is good for. Our book is about those big rocks. We have to have those big rocks in place so that when there are times when morale isn't great, we're going to throw in those little rocks and we're going to make it better kind of in the moment. But the foundation needs to be there of trust, the communication, that connection. And that's what we talk about in our book, Relational Intelligence. So I want to also transition into another strategy for morale, and that is protecting teachers and staff's time. Now, you all know how valuable time is. Every minute counts, especially now when we have all these different events and meetings and report cards, all these things that are happening this time of year. The teacher's time really matters. The staff members need time to collaborate together. They need their time to plan. And so one of the things I always say to leaders is, if something can wait, make it wait. If it's not urgent, we can take it off the plate for a moment. We can always come back to it, but we need to be cognizant of what is going on in our buildings. We need to keep our ear to the ground so that if a teacher is saying, I am overwhelmed and busy right now, we can take that as information and then make some adjustments. Dr. Johnson, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to add to that, so you picked the perfect spot to ask me, is that a lot of times teachers may not know how to articulate that they're overwhelmed and at wit's end. You know, one of the things I know we've talked about before is that teaching is what's called a high agreeable profession. And agreeableness is one of the big 5 personality traits. And so agreeableness means that people are kind, caring, empathetic. They're very other focused, very affirmational in their language, which is great for teachers to have. But a problem with that is the challenges that come with being high agreeable. And the thing is, high agreeable, again, is a personality trait. It's something you're born with. It's not something you really even think about. But some of the challenges to that is that we don't know how to set boundaries. We don't know how to say no. You know, I saw a video at the beginning of the year, I think it was on Board Teachers, and had a teacher in the bathroom at the school looking in the mirror, and she was like, I'm going to learn to say no this year. I'm going to learn to say no. And then she walks out in the hall and her principal asks her, can you do something? She's like, oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And so, but they don't know how to say no. They don't know how to set boundaries. And so, and they don't know oftentimes how to articulate that they aren't overwhelmed, and they don't know what they need to do necessarily, because that's their personality. So it's so important for leaders to understand that this is the type of people that they lead, you know, and don't just think, well, if they couldn't handle it, they would say no. No, that's not how they're wired. They're wired to say yes. They're wired to be people pleasers. And so we have to be cognizant of that so that we know, okay, you know, Brad's kind of overwhelmed at wit's end. I really don't need to ask him about to do anything else.
Yeah. I agree. I think the cognizant is the key word. We have to have an awareness of how people are feeling. And when we know and we can sense that, we're talking with our leadership team, we're doing a check-in, we might say, hey, people, I'm looking at people's faces and I can see we're just holding it together right now. What do you need? And the staff, I believe, will tell you, hey, there's this meeting coming up. We're feeling this tension right now. Do we have to meet? Or, hey, we have this deadline. Is it possible that we can get an extra day to get this report card done? Those are all things that I've heard and all things that I've easily accommodated as a leader, because we know how hard our teachers and staff work every single day. And honestly, we don't know the extent of all that work, because there's work that we see in schools and there's work that we do not see that they're completing at home, or there's that mental load of thinking about children. We have that same mental load. We think about other people's children every single day. We think about their families. We think about our staff members' families. And that's a lot of energy that's required. And so I appreciate you lifting that up, Dr. Johnson, because we do need to be aware and cognizant. One of the advice I always give to leaders is that when you are intentionally taking something off the teacher's plates, if you are intentionally giving a deadline extension, if you are intentionally taking a meeting away, if you are intentionally combining meetings together, that's something that needs to be communicated to your staff. Because sometimes things happen and our staff doesn't always know why things are happening.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we are transparent and saying, hey, this is something that we are doing to support you. And that's important to communicate to our staff. And so I always say, as you're doing these great things, communicate them so that the staff knows why you're doing it and that they're doing it for your benefit. And that also helps with the morale. They'll say, oh, my principal listened to me and they understood and they made an adjustment. That goes a long way with our staff.
And I love that point that you said too. You know, like if you took something off the plate or, you know, move something around, make sure you articulate that so that they know and understand, hey, you know what, they are on my side. They are looking out for us. Because if it's not said, it may not be known.
Right. Exactly. I'm happy to see Josh Tovar. Welcome. And it's great to see you all the way from Texas. Thank you for joining us tonight. Well, we're almost near the end, and I want to lift up something, a third strategy that I think is very important. It ties in really beautifully with what Dr. Johnson was just talking about, that awareness and that being cognizant of what our staff members need at any given time. And so I'm going to leave you with this. It's called 5 in 5. And this is a strategy that's a connector strategy that you can use anytime, but it really is about a leader's awareness of who do you normally talk to. So I want you to think across your day, across your week. Who are the adults in the building that you typically see? All right. Each one of us probably has 10 people we see all the time that we might check in with, that we might say, hey, how's your family? I missed you. How's it going? How's your dog? How's your cat? All those great conversations. But aside from those 10 people, who else are we missing? And so my challenge for you is to think about, and this is a challenge for myself too, who haven't I checked in with? Who haven't I had those conversations with? And can I find 5 people to connect with? So I want you to think about that too. Who are 5 people you can connect with this week that you may not ordinarily stop in and have those conversations with? That's a great check-in and a morale booster because you are including more people in that connecting process. I see someone is joining us all the way from Pakistan. Thank you so much for coming, Nazia. It's wonderful to see you. We are definitely international, so I love that.
That's right.
Brad,
you know,
you may.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Brad.
Oh, I was just going to say, you know, it's so important, like you said, to check in, even with some people you don't normally, because a school is like a family. You know, you're together more than with your real family most of the day when you think about it and throughout the year. And it reminds me of the one last thought that I think is so important with the geese. And the one thing, if a goose becomes sick or injured and it has to drop out and land, there will be other geese go with it. And it will stay with it and watch over it and take care of it. till it either heals back so that they can fly together, or if it, is injured and passes, and then they will move on together. But it's so important for us to check in on each other, to make sure everybody's okay, to see how everybody's doing. In fact, I said it's amazing, and it goes back to me being the science teacher, but sometimes I think animals have more compassion than humans do. And so that's a key piece we should never forget, is to check in on each other. How you doing? What's going on in your life? Because you talk about strengthening team morale. When you know everybody is there in your corner and supporting you, man, that makes it a wonderful place to come and work every day.
Yes, yes, it does. Thank you for that reminder, Brad. We all need to take that time to see how our people are doing. And especially now, I mean, I think about this snowstorm that we just had. We haven't been with each other. I haven't seen my staff in a week. We saw our custodial team. I was able to go and visit them. But beyond that, I really haven't seen the staff, haven't seen our students in 5 days. And that's going to be really important, that we're not jumping right back into instruction tomorrow, that we are giving a little time and space to reconnect with everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, I have seen someone coming from Myanmar. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad that you're here. Well, we are getting ready to close. I want to share a couple of reminders and announcements before we leave. But first of all, thank you, Dr. Johnson, for joining us tonight. We always love hearing your insights. Every time I hear from you, I learn something new. And so I'm very, very appreciative. I'm going to, again, be looking at geese differently now that I've learned some more about the leadership and the followers and the structure of how that works. So it just dovetailed beautifully into our conversation tonight. So thank you for those insights. I also want to do one last reminder to pick up your copy of Relational Intelligence, the Key Factor to Exceptional School Leadership. It is a best-selling book. It is available wherever books are sold, on Amazon. If you already have our book, thank you so much. Please leave us. I also want to share that this week is National School Counselors Week. So we are going into next week ready to celebrate the wonderful school counselors in our building. So make sure that that's a part of your celebration this week as we start February 2nd through the 6th. We're celebrating that. And also, I want to share that next week, well, in 2 weeks, February 15th, we will have Principal Kafele on. He is going to be talking about instructional leadership. This is a great time to have that conversation as we're going into the springtime and thinking about our teachers continuing to learn and grow. And so we're looking forward to seeing you on February 15th, back with us on Teacher Goals at 7:15. I still have people joining, so I want to give a couple last shout outs. We have someone coming all the way from Tunisia. It is 1:30 in the morning.
Whoa.
Wow. Thank you for joining us at 1:30 in the morning there. I hope you enjoyed your time, and I hope it was worth some of your sleeping time. So thank you for being here with us. And Josh Tovar is one of the gurus with staff morale. And, he said that he mentioned that there's, this is the time to reconnect with our scholars. So that's such an important message coming all the way from the principal. So again, we appreciate you being here tonight for Strong Start Sundays. We will see you again on February 15th at 7 p.m. EST. We will see you soon. Thank you so much and have a great night. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.